Hello everyone, this is JPL, and today I'm joined with, as usual,
Matthew here.
and returning with us today we have...
Cat.
Yes. And today we are finally getting to our top 5 movies of 2020. Yay.
Yeah, been a while, but we do this every year, even though it was a strange year. We're still
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah, a year that has given fruit for some and nothing for others. But
Yeah,
let's
no,
continue in a high note. Or a
yeah,
low note, depending on how you view it. Yeah, let's start with our number 5. Matthew, what do you got for us?
yeah. So my number five is one that I didn't expect to be my number five. When I started watching it, but it's hilarious, entertaining, just wonderfully well crafted, and it's actually a documentary though. Saying that is a bit deceptive because it doesn't feel like a documentary when you're watching it. And it's called Boys State. So it's about the high school program, which happens every year, where a bunch of high school students get together and form a mock government for their state. And they have different policies that they pass, and you can run for different positions. So this documentary specifically follows the gubernatorial race for this Texas boys state. And yeah, it's a surprisingly entertaining and heartfelt film. Very emotional. You get very invested in it, and the editing and the interview styles. There isn't any narration, so it's very engrossing and just a lot of fun, which you don't expect when you go into a documentary to have fun. But yeah, it's such a good film and very relevant as well. It has some interesting things to say about U.S. politics.
Never heard of it.
Same.
It's worth watching. It's on
On
Apple
that
TV
note,
Plus.
why don't we move on to Cat?
So, my number five is an anime film called A Whisker Away. And, I mean, some of my top fives are just here because they had to fill up the list, and this is one of those where I didn't really enjoy it, but it was a decent movie. It's about this girl that turns into a cat to get this guy to love her, and I thought it was kind of deceptive and manipulating. But yeah, it was fun.
Okay, I guess that works. So,
It's a strange year, but hey, we still all came up with movies. So
I
I
mean,
will. This
a
one was really.
cat,
This girl turns into a cat in order to like
like an actual cat, or just...
an actual cat. Like she's a
So,
cat, and the boy she likes the cat and doesn't necessarily like her.
that's, that's, progressive. Uh, okay. Interesting. Anything else about it?
That's the main thing that stood out to me. I guess just thinking of like I also watched a TV show this year that was kind of the opposite, where a cat turned into a person, and that one felt a lot better morally for me for whatever reason.
Okay.
Even
All
though there
right.
I
was
will say, watching the trailer, the animation style is very nice.
yeah, it was a pretty movie. I just didn't like the morals of it. And right now I'm taking an ethics class, so that's kind of standing out to me.
All right. So, my number 5 choice, because I haven't seen anything else, will be Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. This is the final movie of the DC animated film universe that they've been doing for the past few years. And so, on their last entry, they decide, hey, we're going to have this big thing, and we're going to kill off all our main characters in the most unceremonious way and end our series. Well,
Um,
this film is both good and terrible at the same time. It has an interesting story, but it's terribly written. And honestly, this is a film that should have been 2 parts, but I guess they just didn't care and decided, you know what? We're just gonna have a freeze frame of all the action and end the movie and kill everyone off. So, great, nice, terrific. I don't love it. I don't really hate it enough, but it should have been much better.
Yeah, I was going to watch it at some point, but never got around to it. And given your description, I don't know if I ever will. But yeah, again, watching the trailer, the animation looks good at least.
Um, it's not.
Okay,
No, the
well that's
animation
unfortunate.
is not that great. Like the for these movies, the animation has been steadily declining greatly
Oh,
to the point where, in order to do like a lot of scenes, especially like action scenes, they'll just now revert to just having still frames of the action scene and have it be described by a person who survived the action scene than the actual having the action scene.
Oh, so a
okay.
visual novel, not a movie.
Yeah, but yeah, it's rated R, gory, very gory, in fact. Lots of swearing for no reason, just to say, hey, we're edgy, we're gonna end this thing off. So yeah, it's not my worst movie of the year, but it's not that great. Which is why we're moving to number 4.
Yeah. So my number four is a film that I don't know. It's been a film that has a lot of people had the wrong idea of what it was going to be going in. But it's called The Assistant, and it's the story of an assistant to a Hollywood producer who begins to suspect that her boss might be assaulting women behind the door of his office. Which from that description it sounds very like ripped from the headline, salacious, like melodramatic. But the way the film is made, it's very slow, very methodical. A lot of it is just watching this assistant do her daily tasks like photocopy things and wash dishes and set up water bottles. But all while that's going on is you're picking up on these little hints spread throughout. And so it feels very lived in and very like accurate to this experience of being an assistant and the sort of moral questions that come up. Um, but yeah, it's also very like well handled and very tasteful. Which for a kind of story that this is being a ripped from the headline story, you want something that's very tasteful, and this film is just very well made across the board, and incredible central performance as well. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Well, maybe enjoy is the wrong term. It left me thinking about it for a while after I saw it.
Yeah, that sounds cool, like a film that makes you think.
Never seen it, never heard it, don't really have anything to say about it.
Yeah, same, I haven't seen it. I might have heard of it because it sounds familiar, but can't remember.
Yeah, it had a little while where it was the number one film on like iTunes. Um, and yeah, it was getting like a lot of people were watching it, but also a lot of people were disliking it just because it advertises itself as like a thriller film, but it really isn't. It's a very slow, very thoughtful drama.
Hmm.
Okay. So moving on to Cat.
Yeah. My number 4 was Wonder Woman 1984.
Hmm.
So that was the new Wonder Woman. This is one of them where when I was looking at, oh yeah, what movies came out in 2020, I was like, oh, that one was 2020. It felt like so much longer ago. 2020 has just been a long year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was don't remember specifics of the movie, but I remember really liking it, and the action was really good. And then the kind of moral that they pushed at the end, saying what you wish for isn't necessarily what you actually want, was really nice too.
Yeah, and we saw that in the drive-in, so that kind of the 1980s aesthetic was interesting watching it at a theater that you would associate with that kind of film.
Yeah, that was fun.
I haven't seen it. I'll see eventually, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say anything about specifics. I'm not 100% interested in this one, although just looks interesting, but I don't really care too much.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say it's worth the watch. It's a nice action film, decent story. Don't expect like super a lot from it, but it's good.
yeah, it's a fun time. I think a lot of people were. It has its problems, and I think one of the benefits of watching it in a drive-in is the experience of the drive-in is just so much fun that you're paying less attention to the faults of the film. Because I think a lot of the people who saw it at home on their couch, where you have your phone right next to you, it doesn't hold your attention quite as much as when you're sitting in your car with nothing else to do.
Right, yeah. And so, yeah, on to my number 4 is the movie The Way Back. Now, this is one of those Ben Affleck movies, which are usually pretty good. This one, for the most part, is good. The downside to this movie is that it is incomplete. Um, it just really feels incomplete. Um, I like the story. It's just a simple, basic story that you've seen 100 times in other movies. Um, so you have this drunkard, alcoholic basketball coach who takes this job to coach a team who's the worst, and he coaches them to be the top. But he has a failed marriage. His best friend's kid is dying. And so the movie ends in the low point of this character, where he gets fired because he's an alcoholic. His best friend's kid dies, and he wasn't there for them. He wasn't really there for his wife, and it just ends in a low point where normally it's you have it continue to where he comes back and he's his way back. But no, it just ends and it just feels like it's incomplete. And it's like, yeah, I know. In real life, sometimes you don't always uh, have that movie ending, but it just, for this film especially, just feels like it just ended in the second act and didn't have a third act.
Yeah, I saw this one as well, and I remember the ending was a little bit strange. Um, I think the reason to watch it is Ben Affleck's performance. I can't say that anything else in the film was all that
I mean, it's a good
revolutionary.
movie, but it just
Yeah,
doesn't have an ending.
yeah,
It's like
it,
the movie ends, and I'm like, wait, that's the end? Where's the third act where he rushes back into that basketball game and cheers his team on and continues and stops being an alcoholic and hey, his wife is back. Oh, guess what? That child's back from the dead. That can't be fun that you see from those movies, yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I've seen my fair share of sports movies, so it didn't bother me too much that there wasn't that resolution, just because I think it could get a bit cliche. But yeah, the it did end in a very weird place.
did it feel like it would have a happy ending, or was it just kind of?
Well, I wasn't really searching so much for a happy ending. It's just that the way the story was told, it ended at the second act.
Yeah, it felt like a surprise when the credits started rolling. It was like, wait a second, where's the rest of the movie?
It's like, whoa, that's an incomplete plot structure right there. Like, it doesn't follow the way that your plot structure should go. It doesn't have a resolution. It just ends. And nothing really changed about the character because he's still an alcoholic. He's pretty much back where he was at the beginning of the film. Which a movie called The Way Back wasn't really that much of a way back.
Yeah, that doesn't sound all that fun.
And we were supposed to follow these group of kids, and like this is like their final game without the coach. And it's like we're gonna win this game for the coach. If the third act was just watching them like prove themselves and winning, that sure that'd be something. But they didn't even have that. It was just nothing. So the movie just ends. Overall, good movie. It just needs an ending. Which is why we moves on to number 3.
Yeah. So my number 3 is another film that I didn't necessarily expect would make it on my list, but I'm glad it did, and that is the animated movie Wolfwalkers. So it's about two girls, one of whom has been sort of a I don't think they call them werewolves, but that's essentially what they are. They can turn into wolves, I believe, at will sometimes. But anyway, so one girl who has been a wolf for her whole life, and then another one who just got turned into one. And their growing friendship, and then also the prejudice of the town that this one girl comes from, who are trying to hunt down the wolves. And it starts out very like small and like about this small friendship, but then it expands in scope and adds in a bunch of interesting characters. And by the end, it was feeling like Princess Mononoke level epicness. And it just has, I mean, the animation style is absolutely stunning. It's hand drawn from the same people who did Secret of Kells. Very, very just really well made. And then the story is just also so good. And yeah, it was delightful. It was exciting and emotional. And yeah, usually I feel like kids animated films are a little bit stale. They're very repetitive, but this felt very much like its own movie.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't really talk too much about it. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I never heard of it, so I can't say anything either. Which is the normal case with Matthew.
This one isn't even an obscure one.
Anyway, yeah, on to Cat.
Yeah, my number 3 was Onward, which is the animated kids movie, I guess, kind of like Matt's number 3. But yeah, it's the two trolls who lose their dad and find a magic stick and magic spell to bring him back to life, but only bring back his legs, and then go on a journey to um, try to find the rest of the spell, or like a power stone or something. Yeah. So yeah, I just found it really sweet. Like the characters were pretty endearing. The story itself was really fun to watch, and the animation was cool too.
Yeah, it's a fun reversal. It's sort of urban fantasy, but in a very like Dungeons and Dragons type way. Um, yeah, I remember really enjoying watching it. It has a lot of the sort of Pixar trademark. This is the scene where you're supposed to cry. But it earns a lot of its emotions and had some really great characters as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I wasn't at all interested in the story concept or the character design or just much of it at all, so nothing really grasped me about it. Plus, I don't know, Pixar these days haven't been the best.
I would say personally, this is one of my favorites of their recent ones. I don't know, Kat, if you would agree with that, but I mean, it's on
Definitely.
your list, so
Yeah, I think it definitely had more like emotion, and the characters were a lot better than some of the more recent, like Inside Out. I didn't like very much, but the characters in Onward felt very genuine.
yeah. It's one that's definitely worth doubling back to check out.
If you like,
And so I will then go on to my number three, which is the animated movie Superman Man of Tomorrow. So after the killing of our DC animated movie universe, we start out with Superman in this origin story of how he becomes Superman. So he doesn't have his outfit. He begins everything. It's pretty much just an origin story for how Clark decides to become a hero, how he develops his suit, how the public views him. Um, in a more modern terms. The animation is very nice. I don't really care too much about the updated versions for these characters that don't really feel timeless in this film, but whatever. Uh, Simple, basic story. Interesting reimagining of the villain. Uh, yeah, not really much to say. He was all right.
Yeah, I've been wanting to check this one out just because I mean, Superman's a difficult character to get well. Um, and
And I think
anytime
they
they
get his
can,
character well. Like he's done well here, but
yeah,
it's a basic story, not really too exciting. If you're a fan of Lobo, then Lobo is in this film. Um, Spoilers, but there you go.
I mean, it's in the trailer.
Sure.
Isn't too spoilery if it's in the trailer.
That's if you saw the trailer. Yeah, I guess that means we're on to our number two.
Yeah. So my number two, which is probably the most well known of the movies on my list. This was definitely a year where not a lot of big movies came out. Which for me was fun because I got to see a lot of smaller movies which I might not have otherwise seen. But this is one that maybe you've heard of. And it's a Hulu film called Palm Springs. And I'm going to, in case people haven't seen it, I'm going to try and give as little information as possible. I actually think it's a better film. The less you know going in. Even the trailer isn't necessarily something you should watch before seeing it, just because there's a great surprise in the first like 15 minutes that I saw it without having seen the trailer, and it just blew my mind. Um, but this is a sort of a sci-fi-ish comedy um, that's set in Palm Springs. It has two very charismatic leads who play very well off of each other, and it's just the kind of comedy that you want for a difficult year. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, it has this more sort of philosophical exploration of deeper ideas, which really rewards a second viewing. Um, yeah, this is one of the few movies I rewatched last year, and it's absolutely delightful. Worth checking out. It's on Hulu, so yeah, the less you know going in, the better it will be. But even if you know what happens in the first 15 minutes, you'll still love the experience.
Again, one I haven't heard of or seen.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've seen trailers for it. Honestly, it doesn't catch my eye, so yeah, whatever.
It's worth seeing, especially if you can get a group of people to watch it with. But even if not, it's just such a fun movie. Yeah, I've seen it twice already, and I plan on rewatching it soon. So
All right, on to Cat.
Yeah, my number 2 was Birds of Prey, and I forget the exact subtitle of that. It's Harley Quinn, and then she joins with other girls and goes on this huge epic fight. And I just thought the style was really cool, especially having Harley Quinn as the narrator. It was really fun, like how all the scenes were like, well, not all, but most of them were in a messed up order, and she's just such an unreliable narrator that it was really fun to play off what you were seeing and what you were hearing.
yeah, this was one that made my honorable mentions list. It very nearly made my top five. I knew you were going to likely have it on your list, so I kind of saved that for you. But yeah, it's a great. It's a lot of fun. Um, Very colorful. Harley Quinn is great. Like you said, the narrative style is keeps you guessing, and it's very different from any other superhero film out there yet.
Yeah, part of what I like is that there's no like huge threat to the world. It's just this small threat to all these women, and they all gather together and have fun fights.
Yeah, I mean the high stakes moment is Harley losing that sandwich, which that sandwich, man, best love story of 2020.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I will speak on this later.
Ooh, is it
Keeping us
number
in
1 for you?
suspense.
So, on to my number 2 is the animated movie Superman Red Sun. So, the concept for this is imagine Superman if he was a communist. So, instead of being born and raised in America, being the hero of Metropolis, he is now the hero of Mother Russia during the Soviet Union. And so, um, it's an Elseworld story, but it's an interesting concept to watch. Um, well animated, a decent story, interesting concept, and it's all right. I mean, it's good. It's fine. There is some writing that's kind of on the nose and too iffy, but it's fine.
This is one I have seen, and yeah, I mean the idea is so interesting that I mean there's just watching it is interesting. The idea of a what if story about Superman, um, which really kind of deepens his character. I will say though, I am somewhat disappointed with the film sort of political
Oh
leaning.
yeah.
I think their evaluation of communism is not incorrect, but it's the character of Superman just kind of takes some very weird turns throughout that didn't quite make sense to me at least. But I still enjoyed the overall film, and yeah, it was an interesting, again, another superhero film where it's not necessarily what you expect right away, and just a fun concept.
I haven't seen it, so I can't talk too much about it.
hmm Which means we move on to our number 1.
Yeah. So my number one film is one that really stuck with me. And it's the sequel to a 2017 anime series. And the movie specifically is Made in Abyss: Dawn of the Deep Soul. And it's a continuation, so I won't get too deep into the plot. Um, but it tells the story of two kids who are on an adventure into the abyss, which is this giant hole into the center of the earth. But the twist on that concept is that wherein most adventure films with kids in them, the kids are going to be safe. That's not the case with this story, and there's some very high stakes throughout the whole series. And the anime show was one of my favorites when that came out. It's very emotionally heavy, but also there's an interesting balance of sort of the despair, but also the hope. Um, so watching the show a few years ago was great, and then kind of put that in the back of my mind. And then I saw this movie was coming out, and it takes the whole concept up to 11. There's an antagonist introduced who's one of the more interesting and unlikable antagonists out there, which is really interesting for this kind of film. And yeah, it goes to some very dark places, but it ends with just the tiniest sliver of hope, um, which I found was very poetically um, appropriate for last year being a very difficult year. But just that kind of balance, and again, it's not necessarily one I would recommend, because it is very heavy and you have to have seen the entire anime series before. But yeah, just I was very impressed by it, and I feel like of the films I watched last year, that one is both the one that impacted me most and the one which best encapsulates the year as a whole. I actually watched it on election night, so it was very sort of that dread mixed with hope was very appropriate for that time.
Yeah, I've heard of Made in Abyss, and like I heard that it was really good. I just haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely on my list of might watch someday.
Yeah, it is very dark, and there's some problematic stuff as well, which I won't get into. It's not for the faint of heart, and not even for the strong of heart necessarily. But it's the kind of thing that once you've started watching, it just you keep coming back to it, especially with the film.
Okay, yeah.
I never heard of it, so I can't say anything. All right, on to you, Kat.
So my number one is Soul. That's another. Is it Pixar? I think so. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
another Pixar movie. And yeah, this one uh, is about this one dude who dies, doesn't want to die, so he ends up in this mentoring new souls program where he's supposed to find this one soul spark in life. And then I think it was just really nice because I mean, even now I'm like at the point where I'm wondering, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And this movie kind of touched on that a lot and kind of was bringing to light some of the things I've been thinking of. So I just thought it was really cool that, especially a kids movie, or at least kids friendly movie, could do that.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I enjoyed it as well when we watched it. Yeah, Pixar had a few good movies this year, and Soul was definitely one of them.
I haven't seen it. I wasn't interested in the concept, so
It's definitely another one that's worth circling back around to watch.
Yeah, that's another one where the characters are pretty fun, but I can definitely see why some people wouldn't like it. then also see. I mean, obviously, I like it, so I can tell why people like it.
Mhm. Um, which I guess goes on to my number one, which is Tenet, which is the Christopher Nolan film. Which this isn't my favorite Christopher Nolan film. It's overall, I think it's good. I like the action. The science doesn't make much sense, but you just forget about that. Just watch it for the action. Um, it's visually interesting. Not really much in the story department, but it's visually interesting. There you go.
I'm sorry, John. I didn't like this one.
That's fine.
I was like, I was watching it, and then about halfway through, I was like, why do I even care? I did end up watching the whole thing, but like halfway through, I was like, I don't even care about what's happening anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. Christopher Nolan has his last few films have been very spectacle over character, um, which he's great at spectacle. But I do miss his character work. I've seen this one 3 times, including once in a theater setting, not an actual theater, but um, yeah, it was. I was. I like the action and the backward stuff is cool, but it just never connected. The characters never connected for me, and yeah, I imagine I won't be watching it again anytime soon, even though I have seen it 3 times. Yeah, it was interesting, but didn't connect with me.
Yeah, I mean, I like it enough to watch it again, but I'm not really super crazy about this or obsessed as I am about these other films. So overall, it's a good film, but just not an amazing film that we come to know from his work.
Yeah, it is one of the bigger films that came out last year, though. Which, yeah, it was an interesting year for film. So we'll see what 2021 brings.
Uh huh. Yep.
We've only seen a little bit of what 2021 brings.
Oh, shush.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
not tell them that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we're still in December, guys.
we
Yeah.
Yeah,
recorded
we're
today.
don't
We're just
worry,
releasing it late, right? Is that
don't
what?
worry. We're gonna reverse time, bring this audio file back to January, and
There.
publish it then.
Yeah, it's not
Right,
being
right,
recorded
right.
late, it's being uploaded
Awesome.
late. Yeah, that's what this means.
Yep. No, we uploaded it in January. I don't know why people didn't listen to it in January.
I don't
It's
know.
been here all along.
I don't know what you're talking about. I guess we have to move on to our least favorite movies of the year then.
Do we do honorable mentions first though?
If you have any.
I have some.
All right.
Go ahead. I don't think I have any.
Yeah. There were. I mean, I watched a lot of movies last year, and quite a lot from the year. Like I said, there were a lot of smaller and films that I might not have seen otherwise, but I got the chance to watch them. So yeah, some of my honorable mentions, and I have more than this, but I won't get into all of them because that will be a bit boring. There's a documentary called Collective, which is very powerful. Not as enjoyable as Boys State, but still very well made. It isn't a fun film, but it's a very meaningful one. Emma, which is the newest adaptation of the Jane Austen novel, and it's just hilarious. It it updates the humor of the book very well. The half of it, which is a Netflix film, it's a very standard coming of age film, but it does everything a coming of age film should do so well that it kind of elevates itself, even though it isn't doing anything that new. We already talked about Birds of Prey, so I'll just briefly mention that's on my honorable mentions. And Promising Young Woman, which is a controversial film. It's fun until the last 10 minutes or so, and there's a twist, and depending on how you feel about the twist, that kind of shapes how you think of the rest of the film. But I thought the twist was brilliant and disturbing in the right way. So yeah, it's some good movies this year, though you had to do a bit more digging to find them.
All right. Anything from you, Kat?
Uh, no.
Yeah, I don't have any honorable mentions either.
Enola Holmes, but those are kind of, just they're decent films, but not super amazing or anything.
Right. Which means, all right, least favorite of the year.
Yeah, so my least favorite of the year is a wonderful little film called Fantasy Island. Now, it's a wonderful concept for a great horror movie. It's based on a classic TV show where there's an island, and where you go there, all of your dreams come true. So that sounds like a great idea for a horror movie. Like, okay, what are the dreams and how do they go wrong and turn into horror? But it's just so poorly made, and they throw everything at the wall. Like, there's action scene, there's zombies, there's just plot twists that go nowhere and make no sense, and it's just not scary in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, it's baffling. So I actually went back and watched an episode of the classic TV show from the 1960s. And that episode was more interesting, smarter, and more scary than this horror movie from last year. Um, it's just incredibly bad. Um, do not watch it. It's not worth it. Not even to like laugh at it. It isn't even that
Oh,
fun. It,
God.
it's just sad, and a waste of such a good, because the TV show itself is so interesting and the concept is so interesting that I was just so disappointed.
That sounds like a shame.
Yeah. I guess kind of going off of that, Artemis Fowl is my least favorite. And that too, like the book, the concept is really interesting, and then the movie, they just threw everything out. Like the book has Artemis Fowl as this villain kind of character, and then the hero tries to make him a movie, and then the narration doesn't make any logical sense as to why the guy is telling this story. And there's just a whole lot of holes everywhere. And as a standalone movie, it's not good. As an adaptation of Artemis Fowl, it's even worse because it just completely takes away everything that made Artemis Fowl the book fun. So yeah, that's my least favorite.
Yeah, that was one of those straight to Disney Plus movies that was just not great. Um, oh man, the book is so much fun, and the movie has been in development for so long. And it's Disney, so you know they have to mess with it, but they really just shouldn't have.
Yeah. So yeah, that means onto my least favorite of the year, which is Birds of Prey. I
Yes,
agree.
so
I agree that it has a good style. I like the style. What I don't like about the movie is everything else. I think they butcher all those characters that I love. Like, for a Birds of Prey movie, like, why is Harley Quinn in this movie? I don't know why. Like, she's not a Birds of Prey, but she's in this movie. Honestly, I was disappointed that it just, for the concept, for the name title that it should have been, it wasn't that thing. It was a Harley Quinn movie. Um, and I don't really like this characterization of Harley Quinn. I don't like how all the other heroes were characterized. I don't even like the villain, how he was characterized. Like, you have a good actor, and you have, you know, a good enough costume for that character, but he's never in that Black Mask, and Black Mask is known. for his black mask, and he doesn't really wear that mask until the end. So yeah, they ruin a villain that I like. They don't portray the characters that I love in a good way. Um, the costumes look terrible. The writing wasn't that great. The choreography, horrendous. So yeah, I just did not like this movie.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with the butcher of characters. I don't actually know the characters very well to begin with, so that might be part of why I was able to enjoy the movie. And then I disagree with you about some of the other stuff. Like, I think the choreography was great. I loved the costumes, but yeah, that's preference thing.
Yeah, I'm with Kat on this one. I think it was a wonderful film that, and I mean, I'm kind of in between. I do know of the characters, but I mean, the reimagining of them for me just worked so well,
I don't think they did.
with the creative vision of the film that it didn't bother me all that much. But I'm not particularly a comic purist generally, so
All right. So why don't we move on to what are we looking forward to the most next year?
yeah. Honestly, mine might be the same that it was last year. So I don't know. I'm split between two. On the one hand, there's Dune, um, which I believe was the one I had last year. Which I mean, I've just been looking forward to this for years. So I won't talk about it too much. I will, however, talk about Marvel's Eternals film, which is being directed by Chloe Zhao, who's currently, at the time we're recording this, the favorite to win the Oscar for Best Director this year. And I mean, her style is just so different from the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do with this film. Even not knowing anything about the characters or the storyline, I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like.
Uh,
All right, Kat.
Honestly, I forgot to do research, so I don't know what's coming out in 2021. So I guess I'm just looking forward to like anything good. I like especially want to watch films that are more deep. Well, I don't know if deep's the right word, but like thought provoking or have to do with real life, kind of like Soul, which was my top one for this year. It'd be nice to see more movies like that come out.
Okay. So last year, my favorite choice would have been Godzilla vs Kong. So instead of doing a repeat of that, because they delayed the film, which upset me, my most anticipated movie of this year is going to be the Zack Snyder Justice League. Mainly because it's a concept that we all have been hearing about for years. Um, that I never thought they were gonna do, but I'm interested to see how this movie will end up. And it's a 4-hour movie, so that's that's a lot more stuff than it was in the previous one. So yeah.
Yeah, so sounds daunting. We should do a podcast about that one.
Hmm. Maybe, maybe. But any final words that we have from any of you?
Check out it. Now is a great opportunity to check out films you might not normally check out. So go for it. Look through Netflix and Hulu and see what shows up that you might not normally watch.
Hmm. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.